Okay, so here's how you disassemble a Toyota Tacoma fog light. This is coming off of the year range of 2005 to 2011. If you have other fog lights or Toyota fog lights are similar to this, the concept may still apply. So here's a fully unassembled one, just pulled out of the bumper, not touched. Here's the one that I finally learned how to pop apart. I don't have the bulb in it. Now, you may notice I really marred up around the edge line, especially on the housing. Now that doesn't matter on the housing because that gets covered up, you don't see that. And you barely see this edge line when it's installed. So that's just minor damage, and then you could even sand that and polish those edges to get them to flatten back down. But I'm going to try to explain how to do this. You're going to take your ball mount, and you're going to want to take your heat gun. Now, a hairdryer might work, but the heat gun gets hot enough. You do not want to stick this in the oven, because I've tried that many times. You can't heat this thing all up at once and then try to work your way around it. This just takes too much time at one specific spot around each area to get it done. So what I did first was I just went ahead and I heated up a X-Acto blade and then a box cutter, and then I melted out the little bar that runs across here that holds this clip in, because I know the glue and the sealant I'm using to put this back in, I do not need this clip here. I just don't need it. That's useful for the factories when they put the sealant in and they pop it all together to hold it in place, but this could just be clamped back together, and once it's dried it will hold it in place just fine. So I get that one out of the way. There's one on the other side. I knock those out. That's just a little aligner lip there, so you don't have to worry about that. Once that's done, I go around probably a couple inch band with the heat gun on high. Try not to melt anything or do any damage. Once that's done, you want to take this and you want to pop it in your vise with that heated edge facing towards you. Because when you squeeze these sides, and it's very specific to squeeze right here under this lip slash band, because when you're squeezing that, the black shell turns into an egg shape or oval a little more than the glass does, or the lens. So when that happens, you open up a gap, and this basically rises up a little bit more, giving you an even bigger gap to pry, which is good, because if you get that gap big enough, you'll eventually get the bottom, and then you can start prying up. But you want to keep heating, and then you can rotate it in the vise, squeeze again, and you don't want to squeeze too much because you can crack it, but it does take a decent amount of force to squeeze it enough to get a gap. And you're not going to get a gap instantly, you're just going to widen the gap until you can twist with a screwdriver or pry some more, where then you get the gap between the housing and the lens. So I'm not going to record me fumbling with it, or I might just set up a little time lapse, but that's basically how you work your way around and get it, and eventually you'll be able to work yourself where you only have about yay much holding it on, and then you can just literally separate it by hand slowly. But the sealant breaks away pretty slowly, and it helps to definitely heat up only one part at a time and work at that. And once you got it, you can take, for example, it fell down from last time, like a door jamb piece of wood, or any thin piece of wood or soft rubber, and put it in between the housing and the lens as you make progress around to keep it from sinking back down in. But once you get them popped, you can clean them all up. Either leave the sealant, remove it, and then add your fresh sealant, or just put it over the top of the old stuff, and then just clamp it back together, either in the vise with some towels, or use a bar clamp But basically that's how I found you can separate these, because they don't separate like a conventional light from what I've seen on other videos on YouTube. It also doesn't help that you have about 3/8 to half an inch of this plastic that actually goes down in, so it's not just like peeling off the top. So hope this video helps. Good luck. Okay, so I just heated up around here after chipping out those little tabs that ran across to hold the locking ridge in. So I just heated up this section about in this area. So now I'm going to squeeze from the sides right here, so then this area will open up some more. So I'm going to put it on the vise. I'm going to make sure that I'm not squeezing. Let me grab the other light. On here, I'm squeezing on here with the vise. I'm going to, not sure if you can see that open. I'm going to slowly crank it down, and then just about there. You don't want to go too far. And then I've already pried on this a little bit. But what you do is you take, I would recommend 2 large screwdrivers, and you can get in there. I already went around right here and pried in the front where I originally heated. Now I'm going to go towards more of the sides, and I'm going to pry up on that, and you'll start to hear the sealant kind of crackle and release. It shouldn't sound like you're breaking plastic per se, but you should start making progress. Now once you think you've gone as far as you can, pretty much right there, you can, one of the things is if you do go at the clip right there, now you have this little open area that you can pry down in and have a good advantage point, so you can try to get down in there and pry up and create a gap. But if that doesn't work out, you can heat up another spot not too far from that. Just rotate around a little more, and then rotate this, and then that heated area is now facing towards you in the open part of the vise. So now I'm gonna go ahead, release it from the vise. I just heated this area and pried around here. Now I'll go ahead and rotate it a bit and heat this area, and then I'll put it in the vise where that area is now facing me like this, and then I'll squeeze on it so that opens, and I will pry more and break the seal and work my way around. Eventually you'll have enough gap where when you pull on it, you can get your thumb under there and you can start working it around yourself till you pop out the last little bit of glue. So I got this area done. Now I'm going to heat up this area right here and put on gloves because it gets hot. And you don't always need to go to the high setting on your heat gun if you just have high and low or adjustable. Just heat it up a little more than warm, you know, but you don't want to melt anything. Take that section, face it towards you. Watch out for the little pegs. Don't necessarily clamp on those yet. So just, you'll put it in at an angle, and then you'll start to go down on the vise. And once it starts slowing down on the gap opening, stop cranking on the vise. Get in here along the edge line and pop it up just like that. You can see I got a much better gap going there. So now I can get my screwdriver in that gap and pry up a little more and work my way around this edge line here. So then I can move this up. Now, you don't always have to heat it. So I'll go ahead and rotate this some more. Then now I'm going to be clamping on to these little side pegs. So what you want to do is you're going to want to carefully put them in the vise, and then mind how much pressure you're squeezing on them, and watch them. Make sure you're not about to crush them, because that's the last thing you want, is to break those tabs that hold in the fog lights. So now that you worked around, you can continue prying, and right on the sides where the jaws of the vise are squeezing, that's not going to want to pop up as much. But if you already pop that and then it's now stuck in there, if you go along that edge, sometimes you can pop them right up, and then since it's hard for them to pop up, it's hard for them to go back down. So it's kind of self-holds it out. As you can see there, the gap's staying open even closer to where the jaws of the vise are. So I'll go around and I'll continue to work this until I've pretty much worked my way all around, and then I can get my hand in there or put little blocks of wood as I'm working around in between, and or rubber. Rubber would work very well too. So as you can see, I can now get my hand in this much better. I can get my fingers or my thumb. So I'm gonna now be able to work it by hand and do it gently, because you don't want to hurt anything. You can let off the tension. Now it's going to close back up as you saw, but it should be, or at least close. Yep, there it is. Now I can open it by hand, and I can get my thumb in there, and I can actually go around the edge and work it by hand. So then I'm not using the screwdrivers or pry bars as much. Now it looks like I will have to pop it in the vise for this stubborn section right here. So you sometimes do have to revisit the vise. So then you can put it in, squeeze it, and then work around the edges, like on the other side. Give it a little bit of heat. Not sure if the camera's picking that up, but there's the sound of the sealant breaking free. Pretty much being held on by a 3-inch strip maybe, and then you can just kind of pop it off by hand. Be sure not to give it too much pull like that, because then you're just making it harder for yourself, because that plastic's bending at an angle inside the plastic groove in there. So now you just got these separated, and you can do whatever you want on the inside. In my case, I'm going to match my aftermarket headlights, and I'll paint with a matte black or maybe a smoke color Plastidip right around these grooves, not on the reflective surface, but I just want to give this edge a good black paint or Plastidip, and then I'll polish up these lenses and put them back on and reseal them. But there you go. Hope that helps. I know this was so much easier doing the second one than the first one because I spent, hours of research on YouTube, oven methods, different ways to pry them, all that good stuff. But no one ever tackled these Toyota fog lights off the 2005 to 2011 Tacomas. So I was a little left confused why these weren't popping off, but I found a method that works. So, and if you don't have a vise, in theory a clamp could work because a vise is basically a big clamp. So if you're in a pinch, it might work. But hope this helps. Thanks for watching.